While negotiations were going on at the international level, countries continued their research to establish their technical superiority over nuclear energy. An important effort towards the production of electricity from atomic energy became successful in the year 1951 when electricity was first generated from a nuclear reactor at the National Reactor Testing Station in the United States. Many countries initiated their programs during this year. Immediately after World War II, in a period before the incident of electricity generation in the US, in order to institutionalize the post World War nuclear energy program, the United States government enacted the Atomic Energy Act of 1946, which emphasized the need to harness atomic energy for peaceful purposes. The Atomic Energy Act created the United States Atomic Energy Commission as a civilian controlled authority. In parallel, throughout the 1940s, the USSR also directed its effort to the development of nuclear technology, including both for military and civilian purposes. In respect of the civilian power program, the 1940s saw giant strides at various centers in refining existing reactor designs and developing new ones. Obnitsk became one of the nerve centers of the Soviet nuclear energy program and became famous when on 27th June 1954, the first world's nuclear power station at Obnitsk with a capacity of 5 megawatt was connected to the Moscow grid. Once all the major powers of the day acquired atomic technology, international efforts were redirected to arrive at a common ground on the use of nuclear technology for peaceful applications. On 8th of December 1953, the Atoms for Peace speech by US President Eisenhower before the UN General Assembly called for the governments principally involved to make joint contributions from their stockpiles of normal uranium and fissionable materials to an International Atomic Energy Agency set up under the UN. Moving forward on peaceful application, in 1954, the United States provided a legal basis for Atoms for Peace by amending the Atomic Energy Act to permit peaceful international nuclear cooperation, leading to bilateral agreements with a number of states. The amended act drastically altered the policy, thereby facilitating the participation of private enterprises in the development of atomic energy. The UN General Assembly, in a plenary session in December 1954, unanimously adopted a resolution which provided for the establishment of the International Atomic Energy Agency, or the IAEA, and for the holding of an international technical conference of governments under the auspices of the United Nations. The success of the international conference took the slow pace of negotiations to establish an International Atomic Energy Agency to a level of urgency. Majority of the countries thought that the IAEA could be used to access nuclear technology in setting up nuclear power plants. The interest generated during the conference persuaded many nations to launch nuclear research and development programs and sharpen their interest in the proposed institution. Finally, the Statute of the International Atomic Energy Agency was approved in October 1956 and it came into force on July 1957. The main functions of the International Atomic Energy Agency are to take any action needed to promote research on, development of, and practical applications of nuclear energy for peaceful purposes, to provide materials, services, equipment, and facilities for such research and development, and for practical applications of atomic energy with due consideration for the needs of the underdeveloped areas of the world, to foster the exchange of scientific and technical information, to encourage the exchange of training of scientists and experts in the field of peaceful uses of atomic energy, to establish and apply safeguards to ensure that any nuclear assistance or supplies with which the IAEA was associated should not be used to further any military purposes, and apply such safeguards, if so requested, to any bilateral or multilateral arrangement, to establish or adopt nuclear safety standards, and to acquire or establish any facilities, plant, and equipment useful in carrying out its authorized functions. India is one of the architects of the Statute of the International Atomic Energy Agency and played an instrumental role in shaping the working of the organization. Particularly on the constitution of the governing board of the IAEA, Fisher explains that in the 12-nation group, the Indian delegation came up with a complex but ingenious formula that has stood the test of time. Moving on to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty of 1968. The objectives of this agreement, which was signed in 1968 by both major nuclear and non-nuclear countries, was to stem the spread of nuclear technology. It is the most widely adhered to multilateral disarmament agreement, but the non-parties include countries like India, Pakistan and Israel, and North Korea, which withdrew from the treaty in 2003. The treaty classifies nations into two categories: nuclear weapon states and non-nuclear weapon states. Nuclear weapon states are those countries that possess nuclear weapons but have committed to negotiate elimination of nuclear weapons, and the non-nuclear weapon states are those countries that are barred from acquiring nuclear weapons, but they are given nuclear technology for peaceful applications, for example, energy production. Today, although many of the provisions of the treaty remain unfulfilled, there can be no doubt about the importance of the treaty towards global nuclear disarmament and promotion of nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. Insofar as India and nuclear energy are concerned, although there are no major uranium reserves in India, India has one of the largest reserves of thorium in the world. Therefore, from the beginning, realizing that India does not have the major uranium reserves, India conceived a three-stage nuclear fuel cycle strategy. The reactor program that was conceived was with the installation of natural uranium reactors in the first phase, followed by fast breed reactors in the second phase, using plutonium from the first generation reactors with either uranium-238 or thorium in the blanket, followed eventually by reactors based on the self-sustaining thorium-uranium-233 cycle. Today, India has many nuclear reactors spread across the country producing electricity, which is operated by the Nuclear Power Corporation of India Limited, or NPCIL. Now, nuclear energy forms an indispensable form of energy for India towards industrialization and to provide electricity access to large number of population. The advantages of nuclear energy are that a high output can be achieved on small fuel and limited land. For example, just two projects in Jaitapur and Kundankulam, it is possible to generate approximately 10,000 megawatts and 9,000 megawatt of power respectively. Nuclear power projects highlight the importance of public acceptance and the need to engage with and consult with communities that live close to nuclear projects. It is also important to allay the fears through a sustained education program which should be launched by the government. Further, it is also important to have a clear legal regime which is beneficial to all the parties. India's nuclear program started as early as in 1945 with the establishment of the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research in Bombay. The Atomic Energy Act was passed in Parliament soon after the country gained independence in 1948, and it set forth India's objective for the development and utilization of atomic energy solely for peaceful purposes. In 1954, the government established a Department of Atomic Energy charged with the sole responsibility of all nuclear activities in the country. The Indian Atomic Energy Act of 1948 is a principal legislation that deals with all aspects of atomic energy production and its associated activities in India. The Atomic Energy Act of 1962 gives the central government monopoly over production, development, use and disposal of atomic energy. Under the provisions of the law, the central government undertakes the above activities either by itself or through any authority or corporation established by it or through a government company.